Well, born here in Charlotte. I grew up here, spent most of my life here, moved away a few times, always came back to Charlotte. I love Charlotte. This is my city. I love it. Um, I did not grow up or was not in a Christian family. I didn't grow up in a Christian home. Didn't have Christian Bible time, throughout the week. I love my mom and dad, so it's not to say that they were, immoral people. They weren't. They were very moral people, very hardworking. My dad's a very hard worker. I love him dearly. My mom as well. She took great care of us. So this isn't to say that they raised us in a bad or difficult home, but it wasn't a Christian home, And as a child, again, we weren't Christian, but yet we did attend church, which might sound a little bizarre. I grew up Mormon right here in Charlotte. I'm the oldest of three. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. My sister's in the middle between my brother and I. He's the youngest. And I lived my life, having a respect for church, but only when I was at church. Went to high school here in town. After high school, lived a pretty ungodly lifestyle. I mean, I got into a lot of trouble in Charlotte and around. I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of. Around the age of 21, 22, right before I turned 22, I got invited. A friend of mine invited me to go to church, and I had no interest in going to church, but I wanted to hang out with my friend, and so I did. I had gotten into a lot of trouble, and at the age of 22, visited this church just to spend time with my friend. And I remember that though I was there to spend time with my friend, that as soon as the pastor who was preaching at the time, as soon as he got up to start teaching the Bible, I remember how absolutely compelled I was to listen. I remember he had my attention completely. He got up. He didn't come across arrogant or prideful or boastful. He just came up, opened the Bible, and began to teach. And though I came to spend time with my friend, I remember I almost forgot that my friend was there. I was so captivated by what this man with the scriptures was saying. And he was humble, he was honest, and he taught the Bible in a way that made it matter. And until that point, I'd always thought the Bible was a 2,000-year-old book that was interesting but not relevant. But the way that he taught it made the Bible matter. It showed me he believed it, he was passionate about it, and honestly, I could feel something going on inside of me while he was teaching. I've never forgotten it. I still remember everything about it. I went back to that service, it was an evening service at a church here in town, and as he, for 6 Sunday nights, he taught. On the 6th Sunday night, I remember he had something I had never heard of before. He had an invitation. And though I know now that's a pretty common thing in Christian churches, I just thought it was a friendly gesture on his part. At the end of the service, he said, listen, if any of you have any questions about what it means to be a Christian or a believer or anything like that, I'd love for you to come down and just, we'd answer any question you might have. And I thought, that's really friendly. So I got on my seat and I walked down the aisle. And I said, hey, you said that if I've got any questions to come down, so I do have questions. And he said, do you have a church background? And I said, well, I grew up Mormon, my mom and dad and I. And we went off to the side and we talked. And he told me about what it means to be a believer, about what it means to be saved and born again. And those terms I just never had understood or never really cared about until that night. So on that night, I got saved. That was back in 1998. And since then, it really was an example of a complete change of heart. For me, following Christ isn't just a different teaching or a different way of life. It's a complete new way of life. And when Christ came into my life, so much of my previous life ended cold turkey. I got excited about the teachings of Christ. I got excited about the opportunity of salvation. And I remember thinking, my goodness, if these things in the Bible are true, then we've got to get out there and tell people about it. And that's why I've got such a passion for evangelism and missions and things like that. And so I try to carry that over into my ministry here. So here at Northside, that's why you see such excitement and passion for those particular types of ministries, church planning and evangelism and missions and short-term mission trips and things like that, because it's something that, it's not just something that interests me, but it's something that's right there in the scriptures and making disciples. And so that was back in 1998, and now I've been married. I've got an amazing wife. Her name is Amy. We've been married for 7 years now. I've got 2 kids, Jackson and Elizabeth, and they're involved here at the school that we have here. So God has really changed my life drastically, and that's why I have such a passion to tell others about Him.